Where did you stop?
This paragraph, funding agencies.
All right. Picking up for Arnita. Funding agencies were an important part of the development of public history as well. Substantial money from the Rockefeller Foundation went into the program at the University of California, Santa Barbara, but also to supporting ancillary activities that brought together those interested in public history. Rockefeller Humanities Program Director Joel Colton of Duke University also agreed to chair one of NCC's resource groups. The National Endowment for the Humanities, parenthetically I might say here that the NEH in those years was a different agency from the one many of us know today. In the late 1970s, the NEH was developing a network of state humanities councils organized for the purpose of applying expertise from the humanities to problems of public policy, but also in also the agency was looking at alternative careers. That is what they were called then at this stage, that is non-academic historians, somehow alternatives. Sometime in 1977, Arnita was invited to a national roundtable discussion hosted by the NEH on, quote, non-traditional careers for doctorates in the humanities. That's where she met Wes Johnson and began a most productive acquaintance with the public history program at Santa Barbara. NEH funded one other project in those years, 1979, that I think has recently been overlooked, and that is the Careers in Business program. The project was sponsored by the New York State Regents to develop a national program designed to, quote, open pathways to business and management careers for recent ABDs and PhDs in the humanities and related social sciences. An intensive summer orientation program at NYU's Business School was to prepare 40 to 50 carefully selected candidates for regular jobs in cooperating corporations, essentially an intensive summer training program and then a longer internship, and I remember the phrase being retooling. You were being retooled for a real job. This program, which ran for several years, created quite a stir, inspired several imitators. Led by Harvard's Ernest May, it brought a legitimacy to the idea of alternative careers that was more than helpful. Those are Arnita's words, not mine. Meanwhile, NCC continued creating resource groups and state committees, all of which fed into the growing network of historians interested in the many varieties of historical work we were beginning to identify and provided connections for new programs in the field. One of these was a joint conference in April 1978 with UCSB and the Public History Program at Arizona State University. That's where I met Noel Stowe, another founder and stalwart of the emerging movement. It was an interesting time. Humanities councils, regional historical associations, as well as NCC founders and many graduate programs were looking to learn more about the field, to expose their students to other possibilities for employment, and in some cases to adjust their doctoral programs. And not the least, the public historian began publication. Among other activities that year, the NCC took on, with the help of the AHA's Institutional Services Program, was a survey of new programs in the field. Although many of these carried the label applied, or some other more specific designation, archives, cultural resource management, and the like, they had much in common. About 40 were identified and described, and many of these later became members, if not founders, of the NCPH. More conferences followed, including a national symposium on public history in Santa Barbara now called the Montesino Conference, which provided further momentum for the effort. In the fall of 1979, NCC organized a second conference of federal historians, which provided the occasion for both the creation of the Society for History in the Federal Government, Jack Hall, and a provisional steering committee for the NCPH, which met at the National Archives.
I can probably read.
Was this where we began contributing $100 to the board? And I have the answer to that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Because I think it was Pittsburgh the next year, right?
Yeah.
Not the fall conference.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I'll explain that.
We can talk about that.
I've already. But yes, we will. I feel terribly responsible for that. My role with the NCC stopped abruptly a few weeks later when I moved over to the National Endowment for the Humanities to take a job as a program officer for planning and assessment studies, a victim of my own propaganda, as it were. For a brief time, I edited the NCPH's early newsletters, but ultimately the press of more general humanities work precluded substantial involvement with its work. My replacement at the NCC, Paige Miller, who's here today, Paige, after a few years, soon moved into the very needed work of lobbying on behalf of the historical profession. By that time, though, the organization was created, the public historian had been launched, and the connection between the NCC at 400 A Street and the NCPH was less than necessary. And I left something out that I'm sorry. Okay. After several years at the NEH and subsequent work with History Associates, where in both places I had the opportunity to practice as a public historian, I went back to the membership organization business, first at OAH and now at the AHA. It has all been rewarding to me and I hope useful to the profession, but I wouldn't trade anything for those early years watching and hopefully helping the public history movement emerge. Thank you.